I'm going to share with you my 3 biggest breakthroughs that I've had throughout my years of painting. These are things that took me a while to learn, and I want to give them to you today in hopes of saving you some time in your watercolor learning. So let's take a look at my 3 biggest breakthroughs in watercolor. I have a free gift for you. Watercolor is not a very forgiving medium. It's hard to correct. So having a plan from the beginning is crucial. That's why I created this free video lesson, 7 Secrets of Fresh, Powerful Painting. I give you 7 powerful tips that will help you plan your painting, mindfully paint your scene, and most importantly, know when you are done and avoid overworking. Many students have already watched this video lesson and are seeing great results, and I know that it can help you out as well. All you have to do is follow the link in the description down below, and you can start painting more fresh and powerful paintings. All right, back to the video. If we want to learn anything in life that is challenging, the main ingredient in learning is time. We must practice and dedicate ourselves to learning, but it's going to take time to see that hard work pay off. And along this journey of learning, there are milestones along the way. There are moments that you can point back to and say, this is where something changed for me. Well, I have 3 of those in my watercolor learning, and I want to share those with you today. Breakthrough number 1, rewind back to the summer of 2017. I was very fortunate to get a place in a workshop with Joseph Zbukvic. And if you're not familiar with Joseph's work, he's a fantastic, world-renowned watercolor artist, and I've always been attracted to his paintings. He teaches a few times a year. His workshops are always sold out. I was lucky enough to get a spot, and I traveled from Kansas City to Dallas. It was the first morning of the workshop, and I was lucky I got there a little early. I had a nice spot close up to the front, and in walks Joseph Zbukvic. At this point, I had his book. I had watched all of his DVDs, every video I could find on how he paints in the way that he does. And finally, I was here to watch him paint in real life. And here's what I noticed. Here is breakthrough number 1 that I did not realize until I was able to watch him paint in person. And that is finding a big shape in the scene, painting it in a connected way, and working with this large shape while it's still wet. What I realized is while this large shape is wet, that is when the magic in watercolor can happen. He was adding some darks, he was scratching in highlights, he was working with this large shape and seeing it as a large shape rather than hundreds of little divided pieces. And that changed the way that I painted from there on out. To help me make my point, let's take a look at a demonstration painting that Joseph did in his workshop. And I want to break down a little bit of his process here to help explain this idea of working into a shape while it's wet. So here you can see this landscape scene with a beautiful view where it just fades off into nothing. So let me walk you through how he painted the scene. In his first wash, he was painting these lighter areas that you see here. And he worked his way all the way down to the foreground, and then he created this foreground with more texture. And then he let this dry. And in his next wash, he went back over the sky, and as he got down near the horizon, he added a little bit more value. And here is where it got really interesting. All of this shape, from all the way to the back of the painting, all the way up to here, this is all one large connected shape. And as he was working nearer to the middle ground, he was adding more paint, more value, more strength. Here he was adding in some more darks while it was wet. But you'll notice this is all one big connection. Starting to see the large shape and then working into that shape, learning what you can do while the wash is still wet, that was a big breakthrough for me in my painting. So find that large shape, realize that you can work within that shape while it's still wet. You can add in some darks, you can scratch little highlights in. The magic is still alive when this shape is wet, and we can continue to manipulate and paint with it. So let's talk about big breakthrough number 2, and this builds on that same idea of creating the large connected shape in your painting. Fast forward a few years, and I got to take another workshop with another artist that I've always admired and respected, and that is Andy Evenson. This time I traveled to Minnesota, I went to one of his workshops, and I got to sit and watch him paint, and that was an equally transformative experience in my watercolor learning. And here's what I learned from him. You must pay attention to the big things before you can pay attention to the little things. So finding the large shapes of the scene and ensuring that you are connecting them and that your values are correct, that is the heavy lifting of the painting. That is the most important thing we can do in our scene. And the detail that seems to take all the credit is almost an afterthought to the artist. So if your values are working, if the shapes are connecting, your painting is going to be solid. And now, at the end of the painting, you can go in and add little separations, little bits of dark, details on your figures, details on animals in the scene, whatever it is that brings your scene to life, that gets all the credit. That can happen at the end of the painting process, after you've ensured that your values are working, that your large shapes are working. You can add in the detail at the end. Detail in your scene. Find little marks, little bits of separation, little bits of what Joseph calls jewelry in your scene seems to get all the credit. And early on in our painting, as students, we think that that is the most important part of the painting, but nothing else works. If your cars look really good, but your values are off, that car is not going to save your painting. That car isn't really even going to matter in your painting if those other things don't do the heavy lifting and make the painting work. We are hungry for details, our eyes look for details. Details get all the credit, but they are not the most important part of your painting. So let's talk about breakthrough number 3. Values are king. When it comes to painting, there is no better tool to render powerful, effective paintings. You may have seen this example before, but look at one of my earlier paintings before I had a good grasp on values compared to a more recent painting. The difference really is night and day. If you understand values, if you understand how to accurately portray the light of the scene, to find those middle values, and to be selective on the darks that are needed in your scene, the possibilities for your paintings are endless. Your paintings will work if your values work. If you're not excellent at drawing, if you don't have beautiful, expressive brushwork, if you feel like your colors are muddy, if you struggle with anything else, but your values are correct, your painting is still going to read in a very powerful way because you are portraying the light of the scene. Values unlock everything in our painting. So learning from the start to think about values, even in the very beginning of your painting, identifying the brightest part of your scene and ensuring that everything else is darker, identifying the large middle value connected shape that I've been talking about, identifying what darks are needed within your scene. And that is the thing that took my paintings from here to here. That is the biggest area of growth. The thing that made everything else click is learning values. So those are my 3 biggest breakthroughs. If you can emphasize, if you can put some time into working in these 3 areas, you will see fantastic growth in your work. So learning to paint the big connected shape, learning to manipulate things while that wash is still wet, learning to be selective about detail and realizing that detail is nice but it's not essential. And number 3, leaning into values, learning more about values, and spending time always focusing on values. If you can lean into these 3 things, you will see big improvements in your painting and hopefully a lot of growth along the way. I hope that this will save you some time and nudge you in the right direction in your learning. And before you go, don't forget I have a free video lesson for you. 7 secrets of fresh, powerful painting. I give you 7 powerful tips that will help you plan your painting, mindfully paint your scene, and most importantly, know when you are done and avoid overworking. Many students have already watched this video lesson and are seeing great results, and I know that it can help you out as well. All you have to do is follow the link in the description down below, and you can start painting more fresh and powerful paintings. Time is the most valuable asset that we have in life, and I really appreciate that you are spending some time with me here today. As always, if there's something you want to know more about, if there's a suggestion for a video about watercolor that you would like to see, please leave that in a comment below. I always love to hear from you guys. And keep working, keep moving forward in your painting, and I will see you next time.